Good morning. Today can be a day of great blessings, even though some people have some serious ponderings today of sufferings. You see, I just wanted to show you also the new stage here. There were a lot of 2 or 3 major truckloads of gravel were put in here, and then it was steamrolled. So now we have this space taking better shape. If you went back to earlier ones, maybe 2 months ago, you might see the way it was before. This space was all very rough. You couldn't really just walk across here. It was all very rough. And there was water channels and all kinds of stuff here, and weeds and piles of stones. And now we have this beautiful space here for nice celebrations. And we wish lots of blessings for all the groups that will use this space. So, I just realized, okay, well, that's life. That's life. I might as well just say it out like this, because I had meant to say something yesterday after Mass for all the people who assisted Mass, and maybe some of you do. But the Mass today is going to be live at 7:15 a.m. this morning because of a community program necessity. And I forgot completely because of circumstances. Yesterday we had some very special guests. We had 2 groups of college students come in before Mass with passages from the United States. And because of this, I invited them to speak. And we also had 2 visitors who live here in Israel. One of them was Chinese lady and a Danish lady, and they came to visit also. And so because of that, I invited them to speak. And the Chinese lady even sang a song after Mass. Those live streams are on the Magdala, Experience Magdala Facebook page and YouTube channel. Experience Magdala Facebook page and YouTube channel. But I had meant to announce that the Mass today would be at 7:15, and I just realized right now, for the very first time, that I had completely forgotten, because I invited the kids to speak and explain a little bit about their experience here in the Holy Land on their visit and pilgrimage. And then also the Chinese lady sang a song. Oh, there's one of our purple herons. And so it was very beautiful, but I completely forgot to announce the Mass would be at 7:15. And so because of that, people don't know, but at least you know now, and if you have any friends, you can send them a note. It's not a good time for people on the East Coast of the United States, I know that, but it will still be posted anyway afterwards for those who want to join that prayer even afterwards. So it will be up online. I see a little bit of Mount Hermon, but I'm not going to try to put it on camera because it's so faint, right up there in the center of the screen. Or maybe some of you have some giant screen you want to see it. I don't think it can pick it up. It's just too faint. Well, we tried. So today is a day of sad memories for the Jewish people. It's called Tisha B'Av. Tisha means the 9th day of the month of Av. So the moon is growing, and we'll have a full moon very soon, in a few days. But they remember the destruction of the 2 temples, the destruction of the first temple, and then also the destruction with the Romans in the year 70, and then they tie in all the other tragedies that people have had. And it's funny, it's been on my mind the last few days. Funny isn't the right word, it's just a nice situation where having this on mind and having conversations with people visiting. And yesterday there was a family here with 3 teenage kids, extraordinary kids, and the lady has come a number of times, a grandmother, and she brought her son and his wife and their 3 boys, and her husband came as well. But just the encounter we had yesterday was extraordinary. Such openness, such discovery, mutual understanding, and thanks be to God, we're in a very different place in our relationships that we were before. And the second reading today is very poignant and pertinent, because it's obviously not the solution that most Jewish people want, but it's interesting that the theme is there. And St. Paul is speaking about the wall of hatred. Now, he's speaking in the first century about a wall of enmity between the chosen people and the Gentiles. And there was plenty of reason for that even before the destruction of the Second Temple. St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians is before this time. So if we have already this type of language, well, there's obviously reason for it, because of the Egyptian slavery and because of the destruction of the first temple and all of the conquering peoples that came through the region and the incredible resistance, like anybody would resist people stealing their house and robbing their property. All of this type of dynamic is going on, and there's a great hatred, and it's probably mixed up by other forces. You know, in the New Testament there we have a text from St. Paul also that our battles are not earthly. They're battles that have a major spiritual component. And so the evil one wants to bust God's family. And when the evil one busts God's family, it's terrible when siblings fight and when siblings grow in hatred. And if we're all children of God, then for us to be in an aggressive fight is a very sickly situation for the family, in any family. And they say the corruption of the best is the worst corruption. It stinks to high heaven. And so the corruption of fraternal love, Cain killing Abel, it stinks. It stinks. The corruption of spousal relationships, the corruption of, let's say, parents who would bring their children into drugs, it's just so abhorrent, so obnoxious. The corruption of clergy, of God's representatives for his people, leadership, religious leadership, it stinks, because the whole purpose of all of that is to bring people to a fullness of life. And so this wall of hatred between peoples, this wall of division, becomes an extraordinary, detestable reality. And Paul is talking in this text of the letter to the Hebrews about how this wall has been undone, dissolved, broken down. You know, the rejoicing. I was in Germany when the Berlin Wall fell. I had started my ministry in Germany in the summer of 1988. I was 10 weeks there, and then I started in January of 89, and it was in the end of 89 that the Berlin Wall comes down. So the rejoicing over the falling of a wall the divisions between people. It's not that we should have good boundaries. Boundaries are important. They say good boundaries make for good neighbors. So it's important for each child to know this is my space and this is your space, and this is where my toothbrush goes and this is where your toothbrush goes. And we have to learn about this. Adults have to keep learning about this, and countries have to keep learning about this. Peoples have to keep learning about this. And so the division of walls, the celebration is powerful. Imagine neighbors don't talk to each other, siblings don't talk to each other for years, for decades, and then there's a reconciliation. What an incredible gift. And the major thrust of the readings today is about shepherding. And I just look at this Mount Arbel here from this perspective. We were under those cliffs the last 2 days, one day up close to them, and the 2 days ago, and yesterday just down below them. And then a few days earlier, we were over here on that edge looking down to the archaeology just this past week. And on the German one on Friday evening, we were really close up to the herd of cows and calves. And you think about how many people have shepherded on this mountain over the years, over the centuries, over the millennia, and in all the hills. And this is just a very small hill even here in this country. And think of all the hills over here, all the shepherds that worked on these hills here, the Golan Heights, and all the hills everywhere. Look at the hills up here. Imagine all the shepherds over the centuries, over the millennia. And Abraham was a shepherd with his flocks, and Lot, and Isaac, and Jacob, and even David was a shepherd boy. This is it, shepherding. And today the readings are very powerful, and there's a major problem in the first reading with Jeremiah, that the shepherds are derelict in their duty. And the shepherds in the Bible are very clearly the political leadership, because they have to shepherd the people through different situations, and also the religious leadership. And when the shepherds are derelict in their duty, have failed in family measures, like parents really shepherding their children. Like, I was so amazed with this grandmother yesterday. They were bringing her family. She knows there's something good here, and she brings the whole family to experience it. Everybody can shepherd. And then there's some people who have very big reach in their shepherding in political leadership and religious leadership, especially at the higher levels of these leaderships. And when they're derelict in duty, there's disaster. Parent is an absent parent, completely absent, like this, through their own moral or immoral irresponsibility, then there's disaster for the kids, the way they grow up, the way they're not looked after, they're not guided to the green pastures. The psalm is so beautiful as well, this famous psalm, "The Lord's my shepherd." And that's really taking up that line of Jeremiah where God is saying, I will shepherd my people. I will shepherd my people. I myself will shepherd my people. And I will give them shepherds according to my heart. And our society today needs a good share of renewal of shepherding at many levels. And there are major needs. I'm hearing lots of cries from different places. Even such an incredibly developed country like Germany, and the disasters that hit the last couple of days with flooding. So many people have died. And then South Africa with its new levels of unrest and trouble. So many countries, Cuba is in turmoil. Many countries in South America. And then in the very civilized countries, many issues around family and life. So much renewal of shepherding needed. All the challenges faced by all the lockdowns. health issues. And we need shepherding. We need to pray for our shepherds. And just tying up the two themes together today with the breaking down the wall of division. Let's say a child is sick and the parents really nurse and shepherd that child to good health, or a child is in an addiction, or a spouse has gone into an addiction, and to shepherd that spouse back to a healthy lifestyle. And this is in the second reading really of St. Paul, because one of the biggest ills and problems of humanity are divisions and hatreds, and how to shepherd back to unity. Now, Paul's understanding theologically, and for all of us as Christians, it's clear that the gift that Christ brought, meeting the Samaritans, touching the lepers, healing the sick, and reconciling. Imagine in his apostles, you have a zealot who is anti-Roman, you have a tax collector who is working with the Romans, you have hotheads who want to call down thunder and lightning and fire from heaven to destroy those people who refuse them entry into their towns. And Jesus is tempering all these people, helping them to reform their characters, their lives, their outlooks, their customs, in order to receive and welcome the other, not to destroy the other, to bring unity about. And all his disciples are Jewish people, and he's teaching them to love the Gentiles. And he welcomes the Gentiles into his company. And the Greeks come, and the Romans, and the woman of Tyre and Sidon. And these very ardent, intense Jewish people are now opening their hearts for all the Gentiles. And then the Gentiles join and have to discover that wall of enmity that's inherited toward the Jewish people. Imagine when Romans let's say the Roman legion that was destroyed here in the course of the Bar Kokhba revolution, an entire legion was destroyed. So you can imagine how the Romans felt about the Jews after they had already destroyed the temple in the 70s here, and now we're in the year 134. And so a lot of these Romans have tremendous hatred for the Jews. And then some of them eventually get baptized and they find out about Christ. And now they have to learn to and overcome those hatreds. And that's not done in a day, when a whole culture is in opposition. It's a major work of transformation, and that has its ups and downs throughout history. An extraordinary work. So we pray today that this day, when people remember their tragedies from the past, that it can become a creative day filled with blessing. A day when the memories of bad past can lead to great steps for creative, blessed future. To overcome hatreds and divisions and to be renewed completely, so that God's family can be restored to full health and properly shepherded. That God can shepherd his human family like he wants to, without the burden of our hatreds and hostilities. And so much injustice has been endured by so many people, so there are lots of wounds to heal. And we can remember wounds in a way that increases the hurt and opens the wounds, or we can remember wounds in a way that seeks healing and helps healing and brings about a renewal of humanity. So may this be a great grace of today, a great blessing of today around the world. And let's pray for that, because all good gifts come from the Father above. So people, God bless you. See you later, alligators. Thank you so much for joining on this very beautiful sunrise here in the Sea of Galilee. Delighted to have you. God bless you. See you later, alligators.